Hey, what's going on? Ryan here, setthebasetriathlon.com, and I am here in my actually cold basement here in the winter, recording this video to talk about how to stay warm on race day. And I just got off of Ironman Florida 2021, got the medal to prove it, and got cold to prove it too. So from that, I learned a few little tips. I kind of experienced, this is my ninth Ironman. I've done 15 half Ironmans. I've done Indian Wells. It was extremely cold in the morning. I've done other races. I've done 2013 Lake Tahoe that was cold. Had no idea what I was doing. That was my first full Ironman, but managed to make it through and stay warm, keep all my fingers, no frostbite. So with that, these are kind of the tips I want to throw out there, especially kind of doing Ironman Florida, and what was kind of surprising how cold it was in Florida at that time of year. Usually it's in the 60s. It was like in the 40s, and a nice breeze going on, so it was a little chilly. And the highs got, I think, upper 50s, maybe lower 60s, so it wasn't really extreme. It didn't really get extremely warm, which is great for the run, but maybe not so much for the bike. So here's some quick tips before you show up on race day and you're like, oh my gosh, it's cold. Make sure you stay on top of the weather forecast. That's always important too. I definitely be checking a week to 2 weeks out. Make sure you're packing the right stuff. So that's the first point. Round up your cold weather gear ASAP before you even start traveling. Make sure you packed it all, especially if you're shipping your stuff, like try-bike transport or something, and you're doing a bag. Pack as much as you can in that bag so you don't have to travel with it all if you don't need to, if you don't have the space, you don't want to check bags or something like that. Start rounding that stuff up early just in case you're going to need it. Have the right gear if you want to stay dry and warm. So is it going to rain? Potentially we were looking at rain in the forecast, and luckily it went away, and it was a sunny day, and there's no rain whatsoever. But being wet and being cold is a recipe for disaster and hypothermia. So just make sure that you're prepared with the right gear to stay dry and to stay warm. So make sure you pay attention to that forecast. Consider it may get warmer as the race goes on. Want to shed layers. So that's key too. So when you're cycling along, you got the blood flow and everything. The sun comes out, it's starting to shine, and when it hits noon, that sun is directly down. So if you've overdressed, you're going to get kind of warm on that bike. So just consider, you may suffer a little bit at the beginning when the bike is first 20, 30 minutes when you're trying to warm up and get things going. But as the day goes on and it gets warmer, check the forecast. Maybe it doesn't get warmer. Just consider that it may get warmer, especially if it's sunny during the day. For those cold weather clothing, eBay is great. Goodwill, dollar stores are even better. So if you do get in a jam and you're in a bind and you're on location, it's going to be colder than what you thought. eBay is kind of not an option, but Goodwill, dollar stores, Walmart, just find something cheap and disposable. Disposable, don't litter. Drop it off aid stations, something like that. But just something that last minute maybe you can use, and even beforehand. Goodwill and stuff like that has some good options. People just give their stuff away to be sold. So check those places out. Keep in mind what you will need before the race even starts to stay warm. So for Ironman Florida, we had to get out of transition and we had to go stand on the beach. It was probably a 7-10 minute walk over there. Stay on the beach. The sand was cold. There was a breeze. It was actually kind of a wind chill going on, and we were cold. We were all in our wetsuits. Luckily, it was wetsuit legal, so we were all wearing them. I had a neoprene swim cap, and I was freezing. We were all bunched up together. In a pandemic. Take that for what it is, but we're supposed to be social distancing and all this other stuff, but we were all huddled up and it was cold. No matter where you're standing, people brought trash bags, and I think that kind of helped. So just be prepared. If I didn't have a Sherpa with me the race morning, so nobody to hand my stuff off to, but they did have a pile there. So if you wore something to keep warm before the race, you could put it in the pile, and they're going to donate that stuff. So it just doesn't go to waste, but make sure if it's something you're wearing to the race start, it's something you're okay with not getting back, because we did not get morning bags, and they weren't going to transport anything back to transition for us. So keep that in mind. Water's wet and cold don't work well together. So when you get out of the swim, you're going to be wet. You're going to be in the water. You're going to be wet. So whatever you're wearing underneath that wetsuit is going to be wet. So if you're going to race, you're wearing your complete kit or race kit, whatever you're going to wear on the bike, is going to be soaked by the time you get off. The wetsuit on, get everything ready, get on your bike, and get out. So you're going to be cold and wet. So keep that in mind. For Ironman Florida, all I had underneath my wetsuit was my Under Armour shorts. And I put everything else on. I kept everything else dry in transition area, and I took a little bit extra time to put on my socks, my tri kit, arm warmers, and all my other warm stuff. The only thing that was wet was my Under Armour shorts, and they dried out pretty quick. So keep that in mind. Whatever you wear is going to be wet. So maybe it is a little bit of a trade-off to be dry and stay warm, to put on, maybe a minute or two extra minutes to put on your tri kit or something like that. And really, when I got out of the water, it really wasn't that hard to get my tri kit. It's a full piece kit. I just slid my arms in, no problem pulling it up or anything like that. It didn't get caught because I was wet. And I kept my wetsuit on the entire run. It was a long transition, so by the time I got to my stuff, I got most of the excess water off, so it wasn't a problem. So keep that in mind. Know what you want to wear and be deliberate when putting on. So if you're just slamming your stuff on, you're transitioning, you're in a hurry or whatever, the typical transition, you're just anxious and trying to get out of there as fast as possible, and you just throw your stuff on, and it's not on right, it's not uncomfortable. It takes the extra time. Make sure your arm warmers are on just right. There's not folded and wrinkled. They're going to bother your legs. Stuff's not going to chafe. Make sure you got your sleeves down. Make sure everything's ready to go and you are comfortable. Because last thing you want to do is be on your bike. You don't want to be cold. You don't want to be wet. You don't want to be fidgeting with your gear because it's not right and you're uncomfortable. So take the extra time. If you're going to put on extra layers, make sure that you're comfortable when you're getting out of transition. Next point, have options in T1 and know where they are. So for Army of Florida, I had arm warmers. I went and bought a cheap long sleeve t-shirt to put on underneath my kit if I thought I needed it. But when I came out of the water, it was surprisingly a little bit warmer than I thought it would be. So I just went arm warmers in my kit, and I was good to go. And the fact that I didn't wear my kit underneath my wetsuit and it wasn't wet when I got out of the water, it was no big problem. And the sun was out, and it kind of warmed us up a little bit in transition. So it was perfect. So I had options, and I knew where it was at. They gave us our transition bags, and I put all my T1 gear like I normally do for any Ironman race. Typically in the past they give you your bag and run the changing tip, but this year we're doing it at transition. So I put it in my T1 bag. I had it right there. I had my right all out. I put my arm warmers out, my long sleeve, and I'm getting everything going. I do an aquaphor wherever I need it. Put on my shoes and socks, and then I made the decision I'm just going to go arm warmers because I felt good, felt warm, and I wasn't even on the bike and going yet. So just know that you can have options. I wouldn't pack an overnight bag or something like that, but have some options just in case you get out of the water and it's maybe a little bit warmer than you expect or a little bit colder or whatever. Just know where they are. Also, just make sure you're organized in your transition spot. Next point, layers are key. So had I been, I didn't bring a cycling jacket. I didn't think it was getting that cold, and it turns out I didn't need it. But I could have gone arm warmers, long sleeve t-shirt, and a cycling jacket over that. I did layers in Ironman Lake Tahoe. I had Under Armour underneath my kit, and then over my kit I had arm warmers, and over that I had a jacket. So layers of air, layers of fabric. The more layers you have, the warmer you're going to stay, and the more options you have to shed layers as you're going on in the race. So you could take stuff off and ditch it in an aid station. So again, back to the eBay and Goodwill and stuff like that. You're not going to get that stuff back. So if you shed layers in an aid station or special needs or something like that, you're not going to get it back. So just be prepared for that. So have stuff on. Like I said, eBay is great. I found a nice used cycling jacket for like $10, and I actually kept it on the whole time for Lake Tahoe, but I still got it. So if I need it for another race, I can bring it with me. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to lose sleep if I leave it in a transition area and I never get it back. So layers are king. You always take them off. Once you leave transition, you can't add them on. So always better be a little safe than sorry. If you think you'll be a little bit cold, a little bit underheated, put on some extra layers, and then first aid station, stop real quick, throw it off, and then keep going. So layers are king. Flying a kite is not recommended during the bike ride. So I saw a lot of this in Ironman Florida 21. Is people had the jackets on that were not cycling jackets, and they were big puffy sails riding down the road. So the last thing you want to do is add clothing that is going to add time and effort to your bike ride. For 112 miles, if you're pedaling and you're like a big sail catching all the wind, you don't want that. So make sure that what you are wearing is specifically meant. It's either tight fitting or it's meant for a bike ride. So you can see the picture here in the background. Well, you can't really because I've got this over it, but you see that picture in the background. That cyclist has got on form-fitting attire, but got layers. So layers are king. Don't wear something that's going to catch a bunch of air because it's going to slow you down, and you don't want to waste that extra energy trying to fight the extra drag from the wind. Last but not least, if you have to stop to take a layer off or adjust, then so be it. The last thing you want to be doing is fidgeting with your gear, with your stuff on the bike, and Ironman Florida, it was open to traffic. So the last thing you want to do is veer off and get hit by a car. Last thing you want to do is veer off the side of the road and crash, or just lose control and crash because you're messing with your arm warmers, messing with your jack or something like that. If you have to stop at an aid station, or if you have to stop in the middle of the road somewhere, get off and be safe, and just do it. Don't fidget with your stuff while you're riding your bike during a race, because the last thing you can do is crash it. It is better to take 1 or 2 minutes, get that stuff off and get situated, rather than veer off the road and your race is over and you have to be picked up by an ambulance and go to the hospital, all that kind of other stuff, just because you're messing with your coat or your jacket or something. So be safe out there. So that basically is it in a nutshell. So if you're seeing this and you want to know more, put a comment. If you have any questions, if you thought this was great, give it a like. If you're seeing it on YouTube, give it a like, give me a subscribe, hit the notification button, and you'll get notifications every time I send out more information on this. So more coming, more out there. Always put comments on there, give it a like. Let me know what else I can tell you out there. I'm glad to help you out. So with that, happy training out there, and we'll see you on race day.